So we put this at the end to coincide with dessert, because much like dessert, this talk is going to be a little bit sweet, maybe not for everybody, and has absolutely zero nutritional value. So we appreciate that. Jen asked me to come and talk a little bit about the origins of the HackGreenville slat, right? Lots of people are familiar with it. We use it. It blows my mind that it is still a thing, and I'm so glad that people are getting value of it, because it all just kind of came out of one sort of wild, maybe Wednesday or Thursday afternoon while I was supposed to be working. Me and some other people who contributed as well, so I want to make sure they get some credit where it's due. But yeah, so in honor of 10 years of HackGreenville, it's been around for 10 years this March. It was originally started. I wanted to talk a little bit about how we got there and reflect a little bit about some of the things that people have seen from it and some of the benefits that it's brought to the area and some of the benefits that it's brought to us as people who have watched it grow and been a part of it. So all that said, we're going to picture it, Sicily, 1940. I'm just kidding. It's right here in Greenville. It's actually in a little trailer off of Pelham Road, right near the interstate. And even though HG was founded in March of 2015, our story is going to go a little bit back to the summer of 2013 to start for context. So it goes back to this trailer. Boy, that is a mess. This is when Andrew and I were working for a place called Freshwater Systems down in Malden. It's a little mom and pop e-commerce shop. Sells water filtration and filtration accessories. This was one of those really fun, like iconic, chaotic, like hacker jobs where, yeah, we're developers, engineers first. We're working on the e-commerce platform that sort of served as the company's storefront. But we wore so many hats. Like we were affectionately referred to as the nerd herd because in a given day we might be fixing the phone system for the company, which ran on a PBX in a box in a very hot closet. We might have made sales board kiosks for our customer sales support so they could see how much they'd sold that month and were they meeting their goals and their quotas. We might have been putting Raspberry Pis together or soldering something on the other side of this trailer just because we wanted a break from looking at a screen. We might have been making an app that we called the Submitulator, which gave us random names for our weekly public subruns. It's the kind of thing we did at work. So this is where HackGreenville came from, folks. You've heard it here first. The vibe was very build it from scratch, rinse, repeat, right? Our boss had built the storefront from a whole flock of supporting technologies from the ground up, and he'd been doing it since he was a teenager. We very much understood the assignment: meet the moment, see what needs done, make it work. Sometimes it was elegant. Sometimes it was a hot mess, but it was always done in the spirit of collaboration, building community, and working hard while playing hard. And in that little trailer was a really cool community. We had myself, we had Andrew, we had Jeremy, our boss, all on one end, little nerd herd guys doing our magics and wizardry, and it really wasn't. And middle and at the far end, we had some really fun marketing specialists, product specialists, graphics designers, all kinds of other people, and we were this little fringe dweller community in a very old trailer out back of the warehouse building. So from a very small, very humble beginning, a community was formed. And speaking of community, here's Andrew doing some of our best work we did all year, which was grilling off the hamburgers and hot dogs for the annual company cookout. So the lines between work and fun, this kind of place, were often blurred in good and mostly professional ways. We even shared a love of music, and more than once the whole flock of us would go up to Charlotte or Asheville or whatever to pursue our shared love of folk metal, if you're familiar with that. If you're not, let me tell you, nothing creates community and bonds you and to your friends and the rest of humanity like being mired in the swirling energy of a pit. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what language you speak, tabs or spaces, anything else except that you are present and part of it. In that moment, you're part of a deeply realized and earnestly felt community. So back at Freshwater, we're making our community move forward with a little self-hosted Jabber XMP server that was also in the hot closet with the phone system. There's probably a Windows XP server or two in there if, 10 years ago didn't already date me and HG and everything else we're talking about tonight. So to extend that community, a few of us did a little ingenuity and got some of those Jabber messages on our phones so we could take that community home after work hours and out into the world at large and watch that evolve and grow. So as it turns out, similar challenges and examples of ingenuity are being worked through with other local folks, trying to extend that feeling of community further and further and further. So enter Slack. August of 2013, Andrew starts talking about this thing called Slack. He's totally convinced it's going to change how we cultivate community at work and how we get our work done. At first, I'm not sure what to make of it. Slack? That sounds specifically like not working, but sure, Jan. He's totally into it. So far, he's had a lot of great ideas, and he's a really cool dude, so I'm deeply curious to know more. It turns out he's gotten himself a seat on the beta testing rollout. So as days go by, he's still work chatting on our adorable and barely hanging on at this point Jabber instance, but also spending time giving feedback to this community of beta testers on this suspiciously slick purple and, aubergine and white looking chat client. Over his shoulder, it looks like everything I loved about IRC, but more modern, and he's totally hooked on it. So when Slack releases to companies later that year, ours is one of the early ones to adopt it with his help. It replaced communication modes for our humble shop. And over the course of months that followed, we spent tons of time learning Slack, how to shape its very squishy and unopinionated form into something that helped us move our company forward. We did an awful lot of training, a lot of adoption seminars, coaching people in how we wanted to use Slack, sending a lot of memes and YouTube playlists back and forth. But everybody from the nerd herd to the folks picking and packing in the warehouse were becoming part of this larger community that Slack was helping us realize. So moving into 2015, we're doing more building at work. This time it's physical, not just software. It also means our company is doing a full gut renovation of a new building near the old Braves Stadium down in Malden. As you can see, it was a chaotic time. We did everything from write software to run Cat5 to help put racks in the new warehouse. We even did some abstract art installations as part of the process. All of this was about raising the flags of community while we did it, bringing all of us together for a common goal, whatever the goal happened to be that day. At this point, Slack has totally taken its place as the premier tool of its kind. Tons of businesses are using it. You're hearing about it everywhere. It's hard to walk 10 feet without tripping over Slack. They were building too. One of the side effects was that tons of communities everywhere, not just workplaces, were adopting Slack as their communication tool of choice. Andrew and I both joined several of these more social Slacks. I remember one for folk metal. I remember one for Animal Crossing. No, those don't have anything in common. That's part of the illustration. Several others came and went. To help people find these Slack instances, right? A number of directories cropped up. People just throwing up websites that were there, not affiliated with Slack, not blessed or administered by the company, but just ways to put out, I've got a Slack instance. Here's maybe a flashy logo if I'm inclined. Here's a public sign-up link. Good luck, everybody else. This sort of ended up being the last straw in helping us draw that map for how we got to HackGreenville. So a lot of things changed as our new space came together. The office, the lighting, the commute. A lot of things didn't. Andrew's awesome painting, which if you got a good eye, you saw in that second picture. Also that stinky red futon, why did it smell like that? Nor did change the many hats kind of also fun work we were doing in building community. So one day in this glass-walled alcove where we spent a lot of our time, Andrew and I were talking as we often did between things. What if we had a community like these other ones for nerds in Greenville? Like, there has to be more of us, but it's hard to find it because sometimes the nature of nerds is to be modestly social. Or, sure, there's meetups, but clubs and, yeah, but I spend a whole day at work, and then maybe I just want to go home and play Final Fantasy or read a book or drink myself to sleep. I don't know, whatever it is I'm doing this week. So I finally remember fondly remember all these things that we had. They kind of came and went or weren't always on. Our clubs, our meetups, our user groups. And I'm so glad we still have them. But we wanted that thread to pull something together. What if I don't want to work for an hour and I want to bother somebody else who doesn't want to work, who I also just want to know is in town, and maybe we can meet up later, you know? What do? So we were sitting here talking about this, and actually or metaphorically, something was probably on fire in the warehouse. We probably should have been doing something more productive. But we're looking at these directories of all these Slacks, and so we pull the trigger and we say, why don't we make one? These guys can make one. Why can't we make one? Who says no? So as I remember, I hit the button, and he immediately started working on a type form, which I think we still use today, to help people get signed up, come in, get hooked up with the things they need to start using this Slack. The two of us sent invites to half a dozen people that we knew at the time, and just kind of watched the ripples go out from there. Somehow the networking, community building, and knowing someone who knows someone bloomed into a several thousand strong community that we have today. So I wanted to take a few minutes and highlight some of the things that people have said about what happened in those last 10 years, right? What has this done? From the click of a button, from a couple of guys who were just too bored to do the jobs they were getting paid for, to now, right? This is a really cool one from Justin. You get to know people, maybe you'd meet in person, maybe not for years, and you finally meet, and it's like your old friends. And I really love that, like, evokes like the old chat room vibe of like, you know, what you want with a community. We moved to Greenville in August of 2014, joined OpenWorks 2 weeks later, and HackGreenville OpenWorks were the only community I had when my daughter was born 3 months later. I just remember how excited I was to finally get out of the house and go to a meetup. So, all because that was here. And then Barry Jones, another certified HGOG, reflecting on the Carolina Code Conference. Everybody across the area coordinating to make it happen. And the constant request to bring it back post-COVID was great. So building the community is what it was all about. And maybe a few whimsical side quests along the way. But that's the story. I hope it was interesting to y'all because there wasn't a whole lot to it. I had to dig through a lot of Google photos to find what we got. But there you go. The origins of the Slack.